Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this morning. My name is Mark from Coolwater Cyber, and I'm delighted to welcome Anjali Fowley and Paul Crumpton from IASME, who are joining us today. So with no further ado, let's hand over to Anjali and Paul, who are going to talk to us about cybersecurity and supply chain security. Over to you guys. Oh, you're on mute, Anjali.
Oh, the first mistake there. I haven't unmuted myself. Thank you, Mark, for inviting us today. Really pleased to be here. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what we're going to talk about. So hello, I'm Anjali. I'm Business Engagement Manager at IASME. I'm here with Paul, who I'll let him introduce himself in a moment. We have been working with FTSE 350 companies, as well as a number of certification bodies and SMEs to help secure businesses against the most common types of cyber attack. So what we're going to talk about today is ways that you might we might be able to help you with that. Paul, do you want to say hello before I kind of jump in?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Paul Crumpton. I'm Deputy Head of Business Development at IASME.
Excellent. Okay. So wanted to talk to you a little bit about things that you can do. But primarily, more than half of UK companies, it's worth noting, have had some sort of cyber incident in the last 12 months. Some of it quite low level, some of it can be a little more impactful on the business. So it's really about ways that you can protect yourself from those. There are about 5.5 million SMEs in the UK. They make up less than sort of 50 employees, and those are most of the UK businesses. So Cyber Essentials is really designed to work best for small to medium-sized organizations in providing that first level of defense against a cyber attack. Most cyber attacks are automatic and untargeted. They are very opportunistic and require minimal skills from those cyber attackers. A lot of those tools are freely available and very much random. The point being, particularly with those SMEs that think it's not really going to happen to them. They don't really have assets or value within the business that would be of interest. So I guess the point is to say that it's not really about those assets. It is about how vulnerable your business is to cyber attack. It's the equivalent of a open window or an unlocked door. So it's Cyber Essentials is really, and Cyber Essentials Plus is about providing that base level certification to say you have implemented some very basic controls that's simple enough to do, that will target some of those vulnerabilities and weaknesses and really make sure you've got that frontline defense there. So I think that's the key thing that I wanted to bring across. So we are IASME. We're the sole delivery partner for the NCSC, the National Cybersecurity Centre, in delivering Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus, which is that certification that the UK government recommends. So Paul, I'll let you explain a little bit about the NCSC.
Yep, so GCHQ, I'm sure you're all aware, is the government communications, and their front of house is the National Cybersecurity Centre, UK Technical Authority on Cybersecurity. So IASME, as I just said, are the sole delivery partner for their schemes. Not just Cyber Essentials, but the Cyber Advisor scheme. For example, Mark is a cyber advisor. And just as a tangent to our conversation. There are only approximately 130 cyber advisors across the UK. It's a particularly difficult qualification to get from the NCSC. So you're very lucky to have Mark on the call today, and that will become more apparent as we go through this presentation on why that might be. But these are people that can talk in business language to you about very technical networks in some cases. So IASME, that sole delivery partner, and we do that through a network across the UK and crown dependencies of what we call certification bodies. As I've said, Core Waters is one of them, and within those there are around, or just over now, 1,000 assessors. So the ability to apply the scheme and to assess the scheme. The scheme is a verified self-assessment, and it's in the first instance. So as an applicant, you would answer a number of questions. It would go to an individual like Mark, who would verify those against the marking guide, and if the answers given were correct, you have your certificate for 12 months that says you've achieved this minimum standard. Cyber Essentials Plus is exactly the same, except Mark would then say, show me, and he would conduct a few technical audits to achieve that a slightly higher level of assurance or CE. Back to you, Ange.
Okay. Yes, I think that sums it up pretty well. So it's a self-assessment, and the Cyber Essentials Plus is the audited version to make sure that it's clear you're doing what you say you're doing. Cyber Essentials Cyber Governance Code of Practice. Paul, this is something you know quite a lot about.
Okay, I'll keep this short and sweet. So back in October, the government sent a letter to the chairs and CEOs of FTSE 350 and similar private unlisted organisations and the heads of the public sector. This letter was signed by 7 ministers, the head of the NCSC and the head of the National Crime Agency, and in it simply said, the time to act is now. And the time to act is now in relation to the instance, and we will be aware of this the headline-making instance of last year at JLR and others. So the time to act they said was now, and they listed in there 3 things that they asked those chairs and CEOs to do. And in no particular order, but in relation to the Cyber Governance Code of Practice, they said, have a look at that if you're a board member. Doesn't matter the size of your company. It's free. It's accessible from the Department of Science and Innovation and Technology's website, DCIT, and it gives you a set of measures that you can implement throughout your company. It's free of charge. As I said, it's free of charge, and in it, there's some free training that's offered. So I won't go into the huge detail now, but I do strongly recommend that you actually take time to have a read through that code of practice. The second of 3 things they said to do was on the next slide, Ange, which is subscribe to the early warning system. And this will be unique to your organisation, whoever you are, and whatever the size. And you spend it says there 5 minutes, I think it's actually 2 or 3 minutes, on the NCSC website to sign up to at no cost to receive email alerts from the NCSC tailored to the cyber threats for your organisation's IP address. So that's a fairly straightforward and simple thing to do. And the third and final thing.
No, go on.
Which is the next slide. And the third and final thing they said to do was to get Cyber Essentials. And I think this is there's some fundamental reasons for that. So
it provides a tool. I was going to say it provides a proper toolkit that boards will need that it's worth them having a look at to see how they would implement CE within their supply chain, and the training that is available to those board members in order to make sure that they know how to implement it within and throughout their business.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, carry on.
No, that's fine. And in relation to Cyber Essentials, one of the key factors in it, and there's been also, Cyber Essentials itself is 12 years old this year. It's not new. It's reviewed every year, during the year, throughout the year, every year by the NCSC and others, for the most effective, effective measures compared to the risks. So this year, like many other years, there will be some changes in the question set that is produced for April. The certification bodies know what those changes are. And every time Cyber Essentials scheme elements slightly change or take in additional measures, for example, cloud services, there's a review done on, is it fit? Is it fit for purpose? What is the efficacy? And I think the first stat there that says 92% of businesses are less likely to make a claim on their cyber insurance than when they have Cyber Essentials than those without Cyber Essentials is testament to the scheme itself.
Our level of certifications are going up at the moment, so that stat is actually going to change. But at the moment, 92% of those that have Cyber Essentials are 92% less likely to claim on their cyber insurance, having had implemented those controls, compared to those that have just gone out and bought some cyber insurance. Sorry, Paul, I interrupted you. Normally I read you really well and I know when to come in, but I apologize if I come over the top of you.
It's really good. Everybody can tell this certainly isn't scripted.
So if you don't know where to start with cybersecurity, there are a number of key things that you can do. There is the question set available on our website. So if you want to read through the questions in advance, then you're more than welcome to download those and have a look at them. What's most valuable from a customer point of view, we've got the Cyber Essentials Readiness Tool as another free resource on our website. This will allow you to do a bit of a gap analysis as to where you are within your business compared to where you'd like to be in order to obtain the certificate. So it will asks you some very specific questions about your business. You can download a copy of those questions, and it will talk about those 5 controls that are part of CE, and very much tailor some guidance for you in a step-by-step way in order to achieve that certification. You can download those, you can print them off, and Mark is certainly somebody that can help you with that as well. And once completed, you'll be in a position to obtain the certificate. So Cyber Essentials focuses on 5 basic controls that are most likely to prevent some of those commodity-based cyber attacks. So it's really about getting the basics right. Secure configuration. Is your computer and your devices set up correctly? Do you have malware protection in place to prevent things like spyware and ransomware? Who has access to your systems? Are they authorized? Do you still have users that may have left that have access to the systems? Have those been disconnected? Are your technical team using admin rights when entering into the back end of those servers and networks? Do you have firewalls in place? What kinds of protections you are already installed? And are they set up correctly? And are you patching those known vulnerabilities within those 14-day periods? So that is those are the key things that we would look at within the Cyber Essentials certification. Securing your supply chain. Paul and I spend quite a lot of time with FTSE 350 companies and National Cybersecurity Centre trust groups. So larger organizations within vertical markets that are really looking at what's going on with their supply chain at the moment. Often for those medium and larger companies that have many of these controls in place, their vulnerabilities are not necessarily coming from within the business. They're coming from parts of their supply chain that potentially don't have a basic level of protection or CE certification. So a lot of our conversations are about how support is available from those bigger companies to secure some of those supply chain weaknesses. Cyber Essentials is very much the government's baseline standard that it would recommend all companies undertake. So more and more contracts with those big companies are asking at that onboarding level whether CE is part of their security management portfolio. So if it's not something that's affected your business as yet, you will hear more and more about this in the coming months. There's a lot more conversation from central government about obtaining CE, and with those government contracts, it is a minimum standard that they're asking for. So there's lots more noise coming from central government along those lines. It's worth noting. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, and just on that point, insurance companies are aligning their questions more to the elements of Cyber Essentials. So I think the message is getting louder and clearer. The government are reluctant to introduce regulation at this moment in time. They'd rather people walk towards the schemes, recognising that there is a risk and recognising that there are some simple measures that can be put into place to help protect themselves from that risk. So NCSC Cyber Advisors, of which Mark is one. Let's go back to that previous slide, Anne, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I spoke about earlier, are there to help if you haven't a clue, or you haven't the time, this isn't your thing, and why should it be? There's a load of free stuff out there, but if you still would like to talk to somebody, there is the opportunity. There are some benefits, additional benefits with the scheme. So, for example, Cyber Advisors, and Mark is one, offers a 30 minutes free consultation for any business with less than 250 employees based in the UK, and is actively seeking to achieve CE or CE+. He will give you 30 minutes of his time, having answered a few initial questions on the route you should take to achieve CE. As a rule of thumb, typically the most frequent reason for non-compliance with the scheme is that you are operating unsupported software. And what that actually means is if you've got a piece of kit that the software in it that is no longer receiving any security updates from the vendor. So, for example, in October 14th or 15th, something called Windows 10 went what the sector calls end of life, which means it's no longer supported by Microsoft, no longer receiving security updates. If you are still using that today, that would be a non-compliance with the scheme. There are other things. That's the major reason. Most of the elements of Cyber Essentials are a relatively straightforward fix. The smaller the organisation you are, the larger the organisation are, and the larger your network, the more difficult that can be. One top tip from me, or one top tip from us would be, I pose you this question: do you know what digital assets you've got, and do you know who's actually accessing them? Those are some really basic questions, but you may be surprised how few businesses actually know that, and particularly the larger ones. Sorry, Anne, shall I move on?
No, that's fine. So just to cover off some of those things, you can access the question set from the website. You can look at the readiness tool, which allows you to do a gap analysis. There is a jargon buster on there with the knowledge hub in case you don't know what any of those terms refer to. It just reminds you what terminology will be used in those certificates. You can engage a cyber advisor for a 30 minutes free cyber advisor time. Mark is one of those, which is brilliant. And they will speak to you in the kind of business language rather than those technical questions if that phases you. You can then select a certification body who will then mark those questions and complete the self-assessment. And once that's verified, you'll get your annual CE certificate. The CE Plus is very much about having an external assessor audit that just to make sure that you are doing the things that you'll say you're doing. So there's the early warning site from the NCSC website where you can go and register. That's another free resource that you can access. But any questions on any of those things, you are more than welcome to come to Paul and I, or in the first instance, Mark will be able to answer those questions and help you with your CE assessment. I think those are the key things that Paul and I wanted to talk about today.
There's just one more, Ange.
Oh, did I miss something?
Well, we haven't missed it. I've just saved the best to the last, I think.
Okay.
One of the benefits we haven't spoken about was that if you're a company with a turnover of less than 20 million, you're based in the UK, and a whole organisation is in scope of Cyber Essentials, you are able to opt in for the no extra cost cyber insurance, which gives you access to a who am I going to call telephone number when bad stuff happens. So free insurance is included if you meet those terms and conditions with any Cyber Essentials certification. That's the other bit I wanted to add. Back to you, Mark. I think we've probably gone over time.
No, thank you both. That's been very helpful. Okay, so that was a good overview of the theory and the background to the scheme. So in the last couple of minutes, let's get practical. So what does it look like? How can we implement this into our businesses? Okay, so let's just take the last 10 minutes that we have together to talk about what all the good advice we've been hearing this morning looks like from a practical implementation perspective. What can we actually do to identify and manage cyber risk within our supply chain? Because the thing is, when it comes to managing cyber risk, one size does not fit all. And so we need to come up with something that's lightweight yet pragmatic enough that we can address each supplier with the right amount of investment and due diligence relative to the risk that they pose to our operations. And really what we're trying to get to is this kind of idea where we can kind of grade all of our suppliers from a low risk supplier. If they were to not turn up for work next week, if they were to become insolvent, they were taken out by a cyber attack, it'll be an inconvenience, but we wouldn't really notice. And then at the other end of the spectrum, there are some suppliers who are so important to us that actually it's an existential danger. They could quite literally put lives at risk. They could cause us to go out of business if they didn't turn up. So, how do we kind of get to this kind of a model? And so the NCSC says actually that the way to think about this is to look at your suppliers through 3 different lenses. And they talk about data risk, operational risk, and direct risk. And when we think about suppliers and cybersecurity, we naturally think about data risk. If my supplier was to get hacked, what of my data or what of my secrets might get stolen? And for those suppliers that are processing our data, maybe our payroll, for example, absolutely, that's a valid question. But there are many suppliers that we have that actually they don't necessarily have any of our data at all. They might be supplying concrete to our construction site. There might be a logistics partner shipping parcels around the country. And so for them, it's not a data risk. It's what we call an operational risk. We are reliant on that supplier turning up for work in order for our business to continue to operate. And so, that's what the operational risk quantifies. If my supplier doesn't turn up for work tomorrow, how will I be impacted? And lastly, there's the direct risk. This is suppliers who are interconnected into our infrastructure. So think about your IT support company, where if they were hacked, because they've got direct access into your network, then they become a gateway into your systems. So those are the three lenses to think about. And I suspect, because it's a relatively new evolution in thinking, this operational risk one is probably worth talking about a little bit more, so we can get our heads around it. And the way to think about it is, through these two questions really. First of all, when thinking about operational risk, ask yourself, how badly would we be affected if this supplier failed, if they didn't turn up tomorrow? But then secondly, how easy would it be to replace them if they did fail? So you might be completely reliant on a particular, maybe you are buying a lot of vegetables. You're running a food preparation business. So you're really reliant on your local Tesco's. But if they were to not be open tomorrow, you know what? You'll go half a mile down the road to your local Morrison's, and it's not a big issue. So actually, the market availability, how easy would it be to swap out a new supplier to replace this one is a key part of that equation. So when we start thinking about these different dimensions, these different ways of articulating the risk and the importance that a supplier has to our business, what we're trying to get to is a kind of like a matrix that looks a little bit like this. For any given supplier, what is the level of data risk? What is the level of operational risk? And what is the level of direct risk that they pose to us as a business? How could we cope if they fail to turn up for work tomorrow? Now, if your role involves managing suppliers, you may well have developed a matrix that looks a little bit like this in terms of ranking your suppliers. Are they a commodity supplier, easy to swap out? Are they a strategic supplier, hard to change, and you're kind of completely reliant on them as a business? And actually, this maps very nicely to our kind of low, medium, high critical model that we started with at the beginning. And that's kind of where we're trying to get to. We're asking ourselves these questions. We're looking at our suppliers through these different lenses. And at the end of the day, we just want to be able to put them into the right bucket. Because the question that we're asking ourselves is, how can I reduce the risk of me being reliant on a supplier who gets taken out by a cyber attack? And how do we agree what good cybersecurity looks like? What is it I'm looking for from my suppliers? And we've been talking about that this morning. If you think about this kind of spectrum of suppliers, if you like, or spectrum of supplier risk, at the lowest level, those low levels of risk suppliers, we could easily say, actually, if they've got cyber essentials, from all the good stuff we've been hearing about cyber essentials today, that's going to be sufficient for us. But if they're a slightly a higher risk supplier, if we put them in the medium category, we could say, well, actually, let's go for Cyber Essentials Plus. We're not going to rely on a self-certification. We want to, self-assessment. We want there to be an independent audited verification that all those technical controls are in place in that organization. And for those kind of medium risk suppliers, then that's going to be all that we need. But if you've got suppliers who are processing your data, or suppliers who are developing software that you're using, like a SaaS supplier, for example, then actually the reality is that the Cyber Essentials, while very good, it doesn't address data protection risks. It doesn't address bespoke software. Cyber Essentials is designed at commodity internet-based attacks. So if you've got suppliers that are processing your data, for example, or providing a SaaS service for you, then you're going to want to look at something that's Cyber Essentials Plus and then something on top of that. So how do you add that kind of data protection, that business continuity, that risk management layer, then a great option is going to be the IASME Cyber Assurance, which is designed to kind of add all of those things for SMEs. And actually, if you've got IASME Cyber Assurance, the audited version, what we call level 2, combine that with Cyber Essentials, those two together is everything you need to be compliant with the new UK government cyber assurance code of practice, cyber governance code of practice. So, that gives you a complete set. But if you've got really critical suppliers, kind of mission critical, and your own suppliers, so your own customers are saying of you, how are you managing that due diligence in your supply chain, then actually what you're probably going to end up with is saying we're going to have Cyber Essentials certified and we're going to have ISO 27001. And so you can see there we've got this nice spectrum that, depending on the risk profile of the supplier, we can just ask to see the right certificate, and then that gives us confidence and a very lightweight due diligence process to know that the supplier is doing what they need to do. That said, everything's relative, right? And then how many suppliers have you got? How many Cyber Essential certificates are you chasing up? And these things all have to be renewed every year. So once you get into this process, unfortunately, you are on a little bit of a treadmill, and you're building this admin monster where you need to keep on top of all of these things. So how can we make this a little bit simpler? And the answer is, you'd be surprised to hear, I'm sure, this is what our CyberSwift platform does. So in the last couple of minutes that we've got together, let me very, very quickly take you through how CyberSwift can help to automate and manage that whole supply chain due diligence process. So this is the supplier portal within CyberSwift. It's just one of the modules that it has. But here we see this very quick snapshot of the suppliers that we have in our business. We've got 12 suppliers in this business, and you can see that in the center there, suppliers by risk level, all the different number of suppliers we've got according to each of the different risk profiles. So if you want to look at the list of suppliers, you can see them listed out, the risk level, whether or not they're compliant, what the compliance percentage is. So this kind of always up-to-date single pane of glass view of what's going on in your supply chain. And we talk about those risk levels: low, medium, high, critical, for example, and those are all completely configurable for each organization within CyberSwift. So whether you want 2 categories or 20 categories, it's completely up to you, and you can map them to whichever certification standards you want, including your own custom and bespoke questionnaires that the system can deliver on your behalf for your suppliers to complete. So let me just give you a very quick demo. So imagine we're using CyberSwift and we want to check out a new supplier that we're wanting to onboard. So we type in their company registration number, click on search, and CyberSwift, well, in this situation, CyberSwift has said, actually, we already know about this company. They're called Coolwater Cyber, and they're already present within my database. So you can just kind of click through. So yeah, I want to add them as a supplier, and all the supplier's details are pre-populated for you. You can see there in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a list of certifications with green ticks next to them. So these are already validated certifications that CyberSwift already knows about for that supplier. In fact, all we need to do is define the risk level. So the risk profile is currently showing is not yet risk rated in the bottom left-hand corner. So if we just set that to be, actually they're a medium risk supplier when we went through our kind of analysis process with them, and that tells us immediately that actually this supplier is compliant, that they've got all the required certifications. It's warning us there that one of them is going to be expiring within the next couple of months. But actually, from a supplier due diligence perspective, from cybersecurity perspective, this supplier is now onboarded. We've got everything we need to go. We can start raising POs straight away. It was really kind of straightforward and painless. But what about if it's a supplier that we're working with who CyberSwift doesn't yet know about? And we've got a growing database. As soon as a supplier is added by any customer, that supplier information is available to all customers. Just the information that is of public record anyway. So their name and address from company's house, the certifications that they've got, this is all public information. So that's all that we're sharing. There's nothing detailed about you as a company. No one can see what risk profile you've assigned them at or any of your private notes. So as an example, let's just imagine we're adding a new supplier in Anchor Environmental. They'll be working for us on a construction project. CyberSwift says, I've never heard of these people. Let's create them. So we put all our details in, we create the new supplier record, and then we assign them a risk profile. In this case, we'll pick them to be a low supplier, low level risk supplier. And CyberSwift says, well, actually, based on a risk profile of these guys, we want them to have cyber essentials. So you're probably talking to this supplier anyway. You've been talking about the project. You know that they're interested in bidding for a work package or something like that. So you can say to them, actually, will you just watch out for an email from CyberSwift, and it will take you through our due diligence process. So an email will go out automatically from the system that looks something like this. You would have your own kind of logo and your name on it and stuff, so that it makes sense to the supplier when they receive it. And it, it's just scrolled off the bottom of the screen there, but it basically says, click here to upload your certificate or apply for a new one. So if your new supplier already has their cyber essentials sorted, they can literally just upload a copy of their certificate, and the team at Cool Waters will just kind of validate that, make sure it's correct, make sure it's valid, and mark it as so within the database, and they'll show up as compliant. If they don't have a cyber essentials certificate, then they can sort it out for themselves, or take the option of actually just clicking the button within CyberSwift, and CyberSwift will guide them through that whole cyber essentials process. Because actually we invented CyberSwift originally as a guided certification platform to make it easy for people to get their cybersecurity sorted, whether it's for Cyber Essentials or IASME Cyber Assurance. It provides all of the templates and the policies that a company would need in order to get themselves Cyber Essentials compliant, along with unlimited support and advice. You can get on the phone with an NCSC cyber advisor whenever you need to. It even includes security awareness training for all of your staff. So it really is, everything you need to get compliant with Cyber Essentials. And more than that, if you're using it to manage your supply chain, you can create your own custom supplier questionnaires. So there's other things beyond cybersecurity you're wanting to gather about your customers. So for example, Bilco building suppliers here, they've got their own standard assessment for their supply chain, and they're using CyberSwift to also ask and answer those questions. So for example, they're asking, are you CHAS accredited? Have you got construction line goals? So whatever makes sense for you, you can configure and create these own custom supplier questionnaires. So everything you need from a cyber, financial, industry regulation, due diligence process, CyberSwift can gather all of that information for you. It's a nice kind of one-stop shop solution. And even more than that, we can take it one step further with our managed supply chain service, and going beyond the platform, we'll actually engage with your suppliers. We'll manage that onboarding. We'll run the workshops with you to define your risk profiles. We'll manage all the supplier interactions to get their certs, to get them validated, or guide them through the process if they don't have the certifications they want already, and really kind of hand-hold them, so we're going to accelerate their compliance as quickly as possible, so you can crack on and deliver your projects that are reliant on these suppliers. We're also having some really interesting conversations with some big projects about actually seeding cyber resilience into their supply chain. So there's the option to subsidize or even fully fund key suppliers or critical skills within your supply chain to make sure you're building that local pool of suppliers, and you can have confidence that the certifications are correctly implemented because they'll be guided through by the experts from Cool Waters every step of the way. So it allows you to kind of really remove risk for critical supply chain characteristics. And that's what CyberSwift is all about, really. It allows you to outsource what is an administrative heavy process in terms of managing this due diligence, but it's also a technical process. You can't just get a couple of competent administrators from the local temping agency and ask them to manage this, because there are technical questions that need to be resolved, especially if suppliers are not compliant with the certification. They need to be guided through it. So that's what our managed service does. It gives you this always up-to-date single pane of glass view of your supply chain and the risks that sit within it. And as you've seen, where you're using a supplier that the system already knows about, it really speeds it up. You're down to a couple of minutes and potentially to onboard and validate that a new supplier is there. So it really does save you time, save you effort, and allow you to focus on managing your projects, not managing your suppliers. There we go. That's what I wanted to cover. I hope you found that useful. We've got a couple of questions that will come through into the Q&A. So if Paul and Anjali want to come back, we can tackle those. And if anyone else has got a question they want to add, then they're welcome to drop that into the Q&A as we go along. So the first question we had was around pricing for the CE Plus audit. Now the pricing for Cyber Essentials Plus is set by each certification body. So it's worth kind of shopping around to find the person that you want to work with. It's not standardized like it is for the self-assessment. But for illustrated purposes, for Cool Waters, for a micro company, then our Cyber Essentials Plus, our cost is 1297 plus VAT. And that covers everything. It's about a day's work for our auditor to do the assessment. And it includes the certification fees to IASME as well. So that's kind of an all-inclusive cost for that. And we've also got a question about the benefits of CE Plus on top of ISO 27001. Do they cover the same things? They don't. They complement each other, but they don't cover the same areas. Cyber Essentials and Cyber Essentials Plus is focused on technical settings on your computers and in your networks. ISO 27001 is focused on policies and risk management procedures within the organization. So those two go together. So when you if you have an ISO 27001 audit, the auditor is asked to read your policies. He won't look at any of the settings on your firewall or your network or your computers. That's what Cyber Essentials Plus covers. Paul, Angie, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I've sort of said in my words exactly what you said there. Yeah, there's CE is technical. It's a yes or no. It's like an MOT. Your tire's bald or it's legal. You've passed or you failed. That's what CE is in lay person's language. ISO, the Rolls Royce of standards, but allows you to accept risk. And you need not necessarily have supported software, for example. You need not necessarily be patching in 14 days. You need not necessarily doing the elements that CE covers. If you've got other measures in place that satisfies the criteria around ISO. And I'm bound to say, and you raise it in your, so I feel I can say it, Mark, if you're looking for a stepping stone that's slightly more than just a technical, because, we absolutely clear Cyber Essentials is a baseline standard, then I'll just draw your attention to it, and you can talk to Mark about it, of IASME Cyber Assurance, which is a people, process and technology standard without the complexities of the ISO standard.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with IASME Cyber Assurance actually, and it's a great stepping stone towards ISO because it's fully aligned. So everything you do towards getting IASME Cyber Assurance is work that's moving you towards ISO 27001. There's nothing wasted if that's part of your roadmap. But for many SMEs, especially if you're just focusing on compliance with that cyber governance code of practice, Cyber Assurance plus CE Cyber Essentials together ticks all of those boxes, and it covers everything that you need, the policies and the technical controls. Excellent. Well, unless there's any more questions, I just want to say thank you to Anjali and to Paul for your contributions. Thank you everyone who attended. We'll make the recording available as well. We'll send it out to everyone who has registered, and we'll be posting on our website. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.